Okay.
Okay, so tell me about your experience with school.
Okay. So I'm from this area. I grew up in LA, but I went to school in Rialto. So I went to Eisenhower High School, a real strong sports school. This is when we didn't have as much of a population, so a lot of the schools were concentrated. So Eisenhower was definitely known for its football and basketball team.
Ah,
I played sports in high school, but I don't remember a lot of my high school. Um, High school was tough for me. It was, trying to fit in. So sports and music was. So I either wanted to be a professional athlete or a rapper.
oh, cool.
Believe it or not, black male. um, and so I was really quiet, and so I wasn't prepared to go to a four-year university. Although I was good in track and field, like pretty one of the top 10 in California. But I socially, academically, I was okay, but socially, I just wasn't ready. So I went up. I started at Chaffey College. All right,
Yay!
Chaffey was a good experience for me. It was a little bit far for where I lived, and so I transferred after that to San Bernardino Valley College, and I started playing sports. But more importantly, I spent like the major part of my day there. So I would get dropped off because I don't think I was driving at the time at 8 o'clock, and I would stay all the way up till 10,
Oh my
almost every day.
gosh.
Yeah, and I took a lot of classes, played sports in between. Um, it was at Valley that I started to kind of, number one, start to get involved in clubs.
Oh, cool.
I started to be a little bit more of a leader on the track and field and being around other athletes and start to just kind of find my own identity.
That's
So,
awesome.
yes, Valley College. Anything more on that?
No, that's a good. Yeah, we love Valley.
Yes, Valley's dope. My wife teaches, she teaches and she's a counselor at Valley.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah,
So it sounds like community college was a great experience for you.
it was.
And then eventually you did transfer. Where'd you go?
So, I spent a good year and a half at Valley, and then I went to Northern Arizona University. If you're not familiar with that, that's in Flagstaff, Arizona. Really good school when it comes to number one. It's like a nature school.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
it's 2 hours away from Phoenix on a mountain, so it snows there. I didn't know about the snow. Really good distance team because of the elevation.
Oh my gosh.
But it was also not as culturally diverse as I'm used to here in California, so that was
Yeah.
a little bit of a struggle for me.
Yes, I can imagine. Yeah. A
Yeah.
lot of white people.
A lot of white people, a lot of Native Americans,
Oh,
from because of the region it was from, but they didn't do a lot of mixing, so it wasn't
okay.
as like California where you're just forced to mix and talk and
Yes,
relate,
for
so
sure.
it's different.
Every day.
Yeah,
And what was your major? What did you end up getting your degree in?
it's great. So I started off in business at community college. I just got a liberal arts. Tried to start business again at Northern Arizona. Um, I like business, but I don't know if I'm a good business student. So I transferred from NAU to Cal State San Bernardino, where I graduated with
Oh,
communications.
oh, that's useful.
Yes, it's useful. I chose it because the professors seemed to be the most engaged, as well as they said it was the easiest degree on campus. So I chose that one.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I thought sociology was the easiest.
I didn't know that. If I would have known that, I'd have been a sociology major.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But that's really useful. Communications, I can see that.
Yeah,
All right, so I know you through working for the county, and I know you use communication every day. Can
absolutely.
you talk a little bit about being a mental health?
Education consultant. So my role as a mental health education consultant right now, it requires a lot of training, giving a lot of training, various topics. And even before I was in this position, I did crisis intervention training, and I was over that, which required us to work with our law enforcement who were just graduating from the academy
Oh,
and give them a 4-day training on mental health and crisis intervention. Transferred over, then I went to the WET, which is our workforce education and training program, and did a lot more trainings like nonviolence crisis intervention, mental health first aid, and then I'm here in cultural comp, continuing doing more training, focusing more on our cultural groups. We have a lot of subcommittees that we work with. The way that we target our services is we know that communities tend to look at mental health very specifically within their own culture. So we try to frame it in that perspective. And so we try and develop these subcommittees that allow us to talk to them, connect them, and to relate to them. So communication comes really as a necessity because you've got to be able to successfully connect with people, develop relationships.
Yeah, I think that means being culturally competent.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yes. And you're not going to start off culturally competent. So really, a lot of times you're listening and you're trying to find shared experiences. And once you find those shared experiences, you find out you like this person likes you, and you keep the relationship.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just back up to, because I'm new to mental health myself, when you say helping people in crisis or crisis intervention,
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So crisis intervention is more when, and that was more when with law enforcement, when they would get a call and it was anything mental health related or even behavioral health related. So it could even deal with drugs. It could deal with veterans with specific needs. We went on to even like synthetic issues, like, synthetic drugs was a huge issue with us a couple years ago. We expanded to folks that have traumatic brain injury, stuff that normal law enforcement training in the academy would not cover. We wanted to give them resources and tactical information on how to deal with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, super useful.
Yeah. It was very much, ours is probably one of the best in the state because we've expanded to touch on many other issues, not just someone who may have had schizophrenia or depression. Although the first day, our law enforcement do get an academic education in it, where our professionals sit down and talk to them about what these things are. Okay. Yeah.
So useful.
Yeah, suicide. That's another one. Suicide by cop, police suicide, huge topics that we would spend a lot of time with because our law enforcement are also susceptible to suicide. And so we did a lot of peer support things. It was a really good comprehensive training.
That's cool. So if a student is interested maybe in getting into mental health, what might you recommend they...
There is so many aspects. My wife is a social worker, and 3 of her sisters are social workers, and we have a lot of social workers in our family. And they all do something different with their social work degrees or in the area of mental health. So I think, number one, you have to identify, do you want to be a little bit more clinical in the aspect of, do I want to work with individuals as they process their issues out? Or do I want to do something a little bit more, as a macro, where there are administrative positions, there's community positions, there are so many positions within not only our system, but various systems with the education, the normal, just, I'm trying to think, colleges have a lot of uses for them. There's so much. So what I would advise is shadowing. You really have to shadow people to see what their day-to-day kind of activities are, what kind of skills they use. If that's the number one thing I could tell for community college students is to shadow, and also expand your network so that you have people to draw from so that they can connect you to jobs as well as connect you to people.
Good advice. I will post how you can apply to be a volunteer here.
Yes, yeah. Volunteer, but you'd be surprised. You can be a volunteer just about anywhere. The way that you do it, though, is you find someone who is intriguing of you, successful, whatever, something you may want to do, and you just buy them lunch and say, you know what, tell me a little bit more of what you do. Can I spend a day just shadowing and taking notes with you? Just about anybody will let you do that, but that's the best way to know if this career path is good for you or this position is good for you, because you don't want to get a degree, go through all this work, and then find out, I really don't like this field. That's a tough place to be. Yeah.
It costs too much to do that.
Absolutely. And there's so many jobs out there. There's so many professions. I'm really big into entrepreneurs too, social entrepreneurship. So you can create your own things. It's a lot.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to the last thing I want to ask you about is, I know you're really involved in the community.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about what motivates you and what kind of things you guys have been doing in San Bernardino?
Absolutely. So when I came back from Cal State, I worked at a teen center, and working it is on the west side of San Bernardino. You could clearly see, number one, there are a lot of disparities. Like, the parents just didn't have the resources to do the things that my parents were able to do. They weren't exposed to all of the opportunities. Some of these are some kids that have never been out of San Bernardino area their entire lives. So I think that started my understanding of, man, we really should be trying to help people from our community to expand themselves. And so from that, we started doing classes, which was for now you're taking me way back. This is when I was in college.
Oh my gosh.
We started doing classes on male involvement. A lot of the males that we would work with were group home males, and a lot of them had kids. So we started teaching these classes just on how to be responsible men. Okay. And I was getting paid really good doing that directly to the group homes.
Wow.
So yeah, I started creating a company that focused on that. But I was still torn because I also like to make a little bit of money and take care of myself. So I started working at Wells Fargo Financial. And so the balance, and you'll see that throughout my life. Maybe one day I'll have to sit down and talk to your class.
Yeah.
But
you can write a book.
Yeah. I found out that that wasn't fulfilling my needs. So then we started the nonprofits. And our first nonprofit was Project Action, focused on HIV and AIDS within our community, just awareness. Out of that then came a group called our slam team, which were poets, and they would go around to schools and do assemblies. You know, like those big assemblies, they would do all that.
That's cool.
All high school students. From that, we started doing. My wife noticed that in our area, our African American students, they're just not graduating at the rate they should be, and they were not equipped in order to go to maybe your UCs and Cal States. And so it was a deficit. So we started doing Black Grad, which was a celebration event for all high school African American students, culturally focused. But the goal was to have them on a college campus, bring them together, and let them know that they can take the next step. And we had resources to do that. We ended up doing scholarships, creating a kind of a village feel around it. So every year it's gotten bigger the last 7 years. So we're about up to 600 participants, about 7,000 folks come, and we try and give out 40 to 50 scholarships. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So that. And then I think you're going to talk about the Black Rose.
Yes.
So the Black Rose was something that we just got. This is our third Black Rose.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's because
it is positive.
Yeah.
Sounds
Black Rose is kind of given to a community group or person that is doing something positive, that is trying to uplift the local Inland Empire San Bernardino community. Okay. So that first one was for Project Action. My wife got another one for a lot of the work she does, and this one is for goal setting. Goal setting is a really unique concept where a group of friends that I grew up with, once I started working for the county, I lost touch with my friends that were doing really good nonprofit work. And so it was an opportunity for us to come together, say, okay, what are you doing and how can we support each other? So twice a year, now it's once a year because we got kids now, but once a year we all come together. Sometimes it can be up to, it could be a lot, up to 100 of us. It started off with like 10 of us, but we're trying to keep the numbers down because that's how we can control it. But it is a fantastic event. We bring in all our friends and we pretty much state our goals. What are you doing? How do you support? How can we support it? And then create accountability partners.
That's awesome.
Yes, so that's a whole project. It's one of the most fulfilling, but that's also helped me with a lot of the other projects as far as fundraising, trying to connect. It's been a huge asset for me, and it started because I don't set goals that well. So I was like, the best thing is to create a whole bunch of people around me that can keep me accountable.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I know it's a lot.
But it's a lot. But you started, going back just to recap, started at Valley.
Yes,
you started Chafee to Valley. Got your degree.
Yes.
And wanted to give back to your community, and it's been going strong since then.
That is true, and I think about why that's the case. My dad is a minister. My mom was a nurse. My brother's a law enforcement officer. So a family that's really a service-focused family. But so I think that was the impetus. But at the same time, I realize that our community needs a lot of help.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I just want to ask you your final piece of advice or thought for these students as they push through this semester.
Yes. So some quick advice. Number one, create your own groups of accountability. That's number one. Is just make sure that you can create your own networks, and you should allow people to pick you. You pick them, and always try and pick people that are higher than you. Um, Put God first. Understand what your purpose is. Understand your passion. Create a plan of how you're going to be best at it. Work hard. Grow every day, and always use creativity. Understand culture. It's a lot, and just be conscious of what's going on.
Nice.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Yes, for sure.